5 years ago, how many people were you truly close to? And how many now? For a lot of people, that number only moves one way. It gets shorter. Not because of some huge fight, no door slammed. Just one by one, quietly, people left the list. This one let you down, that one said something, and another you can't even remember exactly what happened, only that things went cold after. And every single time you were right. That's the part worth noticing. Each reason, on its own, was true. I'm not here to tell you to forgive everyone. Some people are worth walking away from. I'm here to ask something else. Why does the list only get shorter and almost never longer? And to answer that, I want to go back to when this brain was programmed. Our ancestors lived in small groups, a few dozen people, 100 at most. And in a group like that, one ability decided whether you lived or died. The ability to spot who was going to betray you. Who took food and didn't share back. Who ran when the group was attacked. Who promised, then broke the promise. The brain learned to remember those people and cut them off. That's not cruelty. That's a security system. It kept our ancestors alive. But here's the part almost nobody notices. In that small group, you couldn't really get rid of anyone. They were still there. You still had to hunt beside them the next morning. Your kids still played with their kids. You had no other group to go to, and neither did they. So every time the brain declared someone a traitor, that verdict always came with one thing attached. Someday, you were going to have to make peace. That machinery for making peace runs so deep that it exists in animals that aren't even human. The primatologist Franz de Waal spent years watching chimpanzees. He noticed something no one had described before. After two chimps had a violent fight, just minutes later, they would seek each other out, not to fight again, to kiss, to embrace, to hold out a hand. He measured it across hundreds of conflicts. On average, after about 4 out of every 4 fights, the two animals came back and reconciled. And here's the most important detail. Who did they reconcile with the most? The ones whose relationship mattered most to them. The more important the rival, the stronger the drive to make peace. The brain that cuts people off and the brain that makes peace are the same brain. The machine that hands down the sentence and the machine that grants the pardon were packaged together millions of years ago. There's an old saying, anger makes you lose your reason. But there's another one people quote less. You strike the one who runs away, never the one who comes back. Our ancestors understood that the door back had to stay open, because a group where everyone who got angry cut each other off forever, that group falls apart in a single winter. So what happened? What happened is that your world stopped being a group of a few dozen people. Now you know thousands. You scroll past the faces of strangers all day long. And if a friend lets you down, there's a very new, very cold fact. You can replace them. That's exactly the thing our ancestors never had. For them, every single person was irreplaceable. The cost of cutting someone off was so high that it forced them to leave the door open. For you, that cost is almost nothing. So the brake that used to hold back the sentencing hand, the brake that evolution installed to protect relationships, is gone. The sentencing machine still runs exactly as before, but the right to appeal has been removed, and now it hands out life sentences. To understand how that sentence gets passed, there's a finding in psychology you need to know. In 1977, the psychologist Lee Ross named an error that all of us make. He called it the fundamental attribution error.
It goes like this. When someone else does something bad, we assume it's because they're a bad person. It's their character. But when we do that exact same bad thing, we explain it with circumstances. I was tired that day. I was under pressure. There was a reason. Same behavior. When someone else does it, it's their personality. When we do it, it's the situation. Do you see where the sentence gets passed? When a friend lets you down, your brain doesn't record that they behaved badly that day. It records that they are that kind of person. It takes a single moment and turns that moment into the whole person. It takes a photograph, a photo of that person at their worst second. Then it frames that photo, and from then on, every time you think of this person, all you see is the photo. The real person is still alive, still changing. Maybe they regretted it. Maybe they've become someone different. But the photo in your head doesn't update. It freezes them forever on their worst day. And here's where it gets expensive, in a way you rarely see. To keep the sentence standing, you have to keep that photo intact. You can't let new evidence in, because if that person is allowed to change in your mind, the sentence collapses. So you guard it without realizing. You rehearse the reason. You retell the story in one particular version. You're still sitting in that courtroom, except now you're the prosecutor, the judge, and the executioner, and the defendant has no lawyer, doesn't get to say a word. The psychologist Alfred Adler said, each of us carries a private logic, a quiet set of rules about how the world works. For the person whose list keeps getting shorter, the rule usually sounds like this: anyone who hurts me once will do it again, so cut them off first to avoid the second wound. Listen to that sentence. That's not the sentence of a cold person. That's the sentence of someone who has been hurt and is trying not to be hurt again. Adler had another idea. He said when we feel weak somewhere, we make up for it with control. And for a lot of people, the place they feel weakest is right here. They can't stand the feeling of being hurt without seeing it coming, being blindsided, being betrayed by someone they trusted. So they take control by striking first, cutting people off before those people can hurt them, closing the file before there's another chapter. That's not heartlessness, that's compensation. It's a person trying to protect themselves from a pain they know all too well. But I have to be honest with you, because comforting you wouldn't actually help. There are two things that look identical from the outside, and only you can tell them apart. The first is a decision. After you've calmed down, after you've seen clearly, you conclude that this person isn't right to keep investing in. That's a free choice, and it's completely okay. The second is a sentence. It looks the same, but it isn't a conclusion about the other person's character. The file is closed, and a sentence has to be carried out forever. Here are 3 questions to tell them apart, short ones. First question: is there anyone who genuinely hurt me who is still close to me now? If the answer is a few people, then you're really judging, you're still driving. If the answer is no one, then the verdict was passed before the trial ever opened. Second question: does it take effort to keep this person out? A decision is light. You don't need to remind yourself of the reason. They're simply not on the list anymore. But a sentence is heavy. You have to carry the reason, keep it intact. If the reason weakens, the sentence collapses. Third question: is my list getting longer or shorter?
Because if the standard for cutting someone off is that they once hurt you, then in the end, that standard will cut off everyone. Not because they're bad, but because anyone who gets close enough, for long enough, will eventually hurt you. That's the condition of being close. It's not a flaw in one person. If the list only gets shorter, steadily, year after year, then the thing holding the pen, crossing out names, might not be you anymore. It's the machine. Adler had one central idea his whole life revolved around. He called it social interest. He said mental health isn't measured by how well we protect ourselves. It's measured by how many threads we keep connecting us to other people. And here's the painful part. A machine designed to protect you, if it runs with no break, will eventually take the very thing Adler said makes a life healthy. It protects you from being hurt by protecting you from people. So the action here isn't to forgive everyone. It isn't to open the door for everyone to come back in. Some doors really should stay closed. The action is just one small thing: letting a single photo update. Pick one person, someone whose file you've closed but who still gives you a sting now and then. That sting is a sign the file isn't really closed, it's just been locked away. And for that one person, try a question the fundamental attribution error won't let you ask. That day, could there have been a circumstance I didn't see? You don't need to answer it. You don't need to forgive. You just need to let the photo move a little. Just admit that it might not be the whole person. That's reopening a crack for the right to appeal, the right your ancestors never dared remove. And if you need proof that this works, even with the deepest grudges, let me tell you about two men. They were once close friends. Together, they helped create one of the most important documents in their country's history. Then politics divided them. They became bitter enemies, and then they stopped speaking. For 11 years, 2 life sentences passed by both sides. Their names were John Adams and Thomas Jefferson. 11 years of silence until a mutual friend, a man named Benjamin Rush, did one thing. He didn't force anyone to apologize. He just gently reminded each man that the other might not be the photo he was holding in his head. On New Year's Day, 1812, Adams picked up a pen and wrote Jefferson a short letter, just a few warm lines. He opened a crack for the right to appeal. Jefferson wrote back. And over the next 14 years, 2 men who had been enemies exchanged nearly 400 letters. They talked about philosophy, about family, about death, about everything. They found again the friendship that a sentence had nearly taken forever. They died on the same day, the 4th of July, 1826. For 11 years, they each held the worst photo of the other. All it took was one man letting that photo update, and they got 14 more years. Your list isn't getting shorter because you're difficult. It's getting shorter because you're carrying an old machine built for a world where cutting someone off was life or death, so it always came with a way back. That world is gone, but the machine is still here, and nobody's going to reinstall the brake except you. You don't need to forgive everyone. Some doors should stay closed. You just need for one person to let the photo update. Ask one question. That day, was there a circumstance I didn't see? Then leave the door open a crack, exactly the way your ancestors always did. If this reached you, or reached a name that just appeared in your head right now, subscribe. We make videos like this every week for people who think a lot and sometimes wonder why the world around them gets emptier every year. And if your list has gotten so short that you find yourself nearly alone, then sitting down with a professional isn't a sign of weakness. It's just inviting one new person onto the list, starting again with one name. Thank you for being here.